Hello, everyone. Um, Morgan, did we hear back from our reps about when they'll be able to join us?
He did not.
Okay.
That was really last minute, I know. So I know they were at least trying to join by 7:30. So maybe we bump up committee reports.
Yep. Yeah, that sounds good. So we'll plan on doing those before. We'll see. I might save the policy one until after, but we'll pull forward the other ones.
Perfect.
So,
yeah.
Okay, great. I will be right back.
Cool.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us. We'll get started right after 7 p.m. Hey, everybody. I see a bunch of people joining the meeting now, so we'll get started in just a couple minutes. Looking forward to it. All right. So I see there are still people joining us, but that's okay. We'll let them all come in as we get started. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the May general meeting of the 43rd District Democrats. My name is Scott Alspa. I use he, him pronouns. I'm the chair of the 43rd District Democrats. It's great to be here with all of you tonight. We have a busy agenda, so I'm looking forward to getting into that. But to start us off, Kelsey Hamlin will be giving our land acknowledgement.
Hey everyone. All right, so although we are all joining virtually tonight, we'd like to start this event acknowledging that we stand on the stolen land of Native people. It is important to recognize that this land was taken from its original caretakers and then degraded to meet the desires of European settlers. I want us to honor the nations and their land. In the 43rd, we are on the traditional land of the first people of Seattle. That would be the Duwamish people, the Stillaguamish and Coast Salish, past and present. We honor with gratitude the land itself and the original tribal stewards of this land. Please take a moment to reflect on any nations you know who cared for this land or the land you grew up on. Do you know whose land you occupy and have occupied? If not, we'll put a helpful map in the chat for you to look at. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kelsey. I really appreciate that. And with that, I'll actually just piggyback off of our land acknowledgement to say that last month in our budget, we approved funds to go to the Real Rent Duwamish, and we have started making those donations monthly. So thank you all for doing that. We need to do more than just acknowledge what happened. We need to actively work on fixing and providing material support to the Duwamish tribe and others. All right, so with that, we will go through. Morgan, do you have our meeting norms and Robert's Rules explanation up still?
I sure do.
Awesome.
Sorry, 1 second. I'm just getting the Facebook live stream all set and shared.
Great.
1 second, I'll go through this. Okay, yes. So as with our last few meetings, general meeting operations, the chat is disabled for general chat, but if you do have a question, you can reach out to me for meeting help, or you can reach out if you have a question about voting codes to Bryce Colton. His name is noted as voting code help in the participants list. So you should be able to chat with us if you run into any trouble. If you do need to raise your hand to seek the floor, you can find raise hand in the reactions tab at the bottom of your Zoom window. All the other reactions are there for you as well. And then to raise your hand when you're calling in, you can press *9, and then we should be able to see that. And then the chair will call on you in the order that those raised hands appear. Like I was mentioning, we are live streaming on Facebook, and the chat will be enabled there. Comments will be enabled there if you wish to take part in discussions during the meeting. And I did share that link just now, but great.
Awesome. Thank you, Morgan. And then do we have the meeting norms piece? Great. Maddie, do you want to take us through these? I can do it as well.
I'm here.
Okay, great.
All right, real quickly, we're going to run through our meeting norms for tonight's agenda. The first being treat each other with dignity and respect. The second being, if you don't know, please ask. And then on the flip side of that, if you're someone who is quite experienced, please remember to leave that space for others to be able to ask questions, make comments, and welcome them into what might be their first 43rd District Democrat meeting. We're asking everyone to remember to step up if there's someone who typically might not participate, and then folks who have no problem participating, asking them to step back to create that space. Please remember that everyone here is a volunteer and has given their time freely and willingly to the 43rd District Democrats, so please be flexible and patient with them. And then just remember that together we share responsibility for staying on time. So Scott is our facilitator and our moderator, but of course we rely on all of you to help us stick to our agenda as well. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thanks so much, Maddie. And then the last slide, I think, is Robert's Rules, and I will take us through that. So just for any folks who are new here, we operate on our meetings under Robert's Rules of Order, which is just a set of parliamentary procedures which allow us to have structured discussion and debate and to approve things here. So you don't need to know the rules to participate. We will help turn whatever questions or requests you have into motions. You'll see if you're brand new, you'll see people saying things like, I move that we approve this resolution, or that we amend this resolution in some way. That is Robert's rules. But if you want to make a change to something, please raise your hand and we'll help you get there. If you don't understand what is going on at some point, once we start getting into the part where we are having debates and discussions, please raise your hand and ask. We really want to make sure that everybody is able to follow what's going on. And if you are a parliamentary rock star and you know Robert's rules front to back, please just be aware of your superpowers and use them for good, and help us move the meeting smoothly along. And please don't use our meetings as an opportunity to show all of your knowledge. So we respect it, but please be aware that we're not all on the same level here. So with that, I think we're ready to move to approving our agenda. I think that it has been shared in the chat multiple times. I will share it again here. I will note a couple updates. We've had to unfortunately reschedule our renters' rights presentation. The person who is going to join us from LGBTQ allyship had to reschedule. And then we had two resolutions, one on creating a select committee for climate change at the Seattle City Council, and then one on the transportation plans and highway expansion. And the authors of both of those have decided to pull them and then bring them back another time. So we will not be discussing those tonight. We are going to start off with guest speakers if we approve this agenda. Because we had to move the renters' rights presentation, we may have to fill some time before all three of our 43rd reps get here. If we have to do that, we'll bump up the committee and officer reports there. So any other adjustments to this agenda? And please raise your hand if you have anything. I'll get you unmuted. Okay, I'm not hearing any changes to be made, so if there's no objection, we will approve our agenda. All right, not seeing any, so we have our agenda approved. And then are there any corrections to our April meeting minutes? The big thing we did in April was to approve our budget for the year. Okay, not seeing any. We have our April minutes approved. That's great. We will get right into our candidate guest speakers that we have here tonight. So I'm excited. It looks like we have 4 listed and we might have some more in the audience. So to get that started, we have State Senator Joe Nguyen is running for King County Executive. All of our candidates are going to have 2 minutes to introduce themselves. Morgan, I think you're going to share your screen with the timer.
Yes,
yeah.
that's
Great. And if when it's your turn and we call you, if you could raise your hand, it will help us to find you and unmute you to all of our candidates. Would appreciate that. But yeah, if we can get Senator Nguyen unmuted, we can get started.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Let me lower my hand now that we're going as well.
Yep.
First off, thank you so much, Mr. Chair, members of the 43rd. Appreciate the opportunity to be here. I'm Joe Nguyen, and I'm from White Center. I'm the son of refugees, and I'm the first Vietnamese state senator in Washington. And it is truly an honor to serve, especially during this past session where we made tremendous progress on progressive revenue, on police accountability, addressing climate change, and historic investments in basic needs programs. And I don't think it was an accident that it was also the most diverse legislature in the history of Washington state that helped enact some of these changes. And this is what happens when we work within communities. and uplift the voices of people who are impacted by these policies. And especially as we are recovering from this pandemic, I think that we can all agree that we need systemic change right now, and leaders who reflect the values and the diversity of this county. And just like in the legislature, I believe we can transform how things are done. But I will tell you that in my observations over the past few years, it is incredibly hard to create systemic change when the people who are in charge benefit from the system. It is very hard to create systemic change when the people who are in charge benefit from that system, when their donors profit from that system, right? So that's why I'm running for King County Executive. This moment is bigger than any one person. It is about the future of what our democracy could look like. We can build a better future, but it will require the audacity to rethink how things are done. If we believe that money in politics is bad and corporations aren't people, don't take corporate PACs. If we believe that our criminal justice system is broken, we shouldn't spend 73% of the county general fund on that legal system and instead invest in people. So we are at a once in a generation moment to create systemic change, but it will require all of us. And that's why I'm asking for your support. So I'm Joe Nguyen, running for King County Executive. Thank you so much for the time this evening. And 2 seconds to spare.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, thanks so much for joining us tonight, and look forward to hearing from all of our candidates at our endorsements meeting in June. So, all right, so moving down the list, we're moving to Seattle City Council now. And up first, we have running for position 9, Nikkita Oliver. Can we get Nikkita unmuted? All right. Hi, Nikkita.
Hello. All right, I'm trying to find that handy timer. Is there any way to pin it? Okay.
Yes, we are doing. Morgan, do you have the timer up?
I have it spotlighted and I'll start it as soon as you start speaking. So whenever you're ready.
All right, awesome. Well, my name is Nikkita Oliver and I use they, them pronouns. I'm a grassroots community organizer, artist, cultural worker, executive director of creative justice, attorney, and professor at Seattle University School of Law. I am running for Seattle City Council because it's time that we respond to the greatest needs in our community with solutions that are commensurate with the crisis and aligned with the vision of the city we desire to be. And as a Black, mixed, non-binary, queer worker and renter who has experienced housing instability, I know these crises personally. We need to address our nearly 100 years of exclusionary zoning that it was put in place in 1923 and the devastating lack of affordable housing. And the upcoming 2024 comprehensive plan is a great place for us to start, to build neighborhood residential zoning and to have a mix of housing and residential patterns that allows more workforce housing, co-ops, and community land trusts. We need short-term strategies that include emergency shelters such as hotels, tiny homes, and long-term strategies that prioritize city-funded social affordable housing. And we need a public health and safety system that works for everyone, which means prioritizing our budget towards basic needs, prevention. We need to reach our climate goals. And this requires a multifaceted strategy of decreasing our transportation emissions and decreasing emissions from buildings and building green and having equitable access to transportation. And we need to prioritize COVID relief. And our new Jumpstart tax is a great place to do that, and to build affordable housing, retrofitting, and weatherization. And I'm excited to work on these issues with community as a community organizer from the Seattle City Council, and to do so with key endorsements like QFCW 21, UAW 4121, Rep. Kirsten Harris-Talley, Terry Simmons, Tammy Morales, who's on the Seattle City Council, and former Councilmember Michael Bryan and the Emerald City Youth Organizing Collective. So thank you so much for allowing me to attend your meeting, and I'm looking forward to partnering with you further.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Really, really appreciate it. Okay, up next we have also running for Seattle City Council position 9 is Corey Eichner.
All righty, I think, same thing as Senator Nguyen, let me get my hand drop there. I'm used to Teams, so I'm, reacquainting myself with Zoom now. So, well, thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. My name is Corey Eichner, and I am running for Seattle City Council position 9. I'm a new face, I'm sure, to many of you, and that is because I'm an educator. For the last 18 years, I've gone to work every day serving our students as a teacher and an administrator in our public schools. I've had the privilege of working with students and families across our region, from South King County up to Shoreline. As a leader and an advocate for our kids, I have fought for reform in our education system to ensure that our students and families furthest from educational justice have the access and opportunities they need to succeed. Today, as an administrator at Lincoln High School right here in Seattle, in Wallingford, I've continued this important work here at home with our kids. I always tell people in education, we have to work together to get things done. Anybody who's gone to a PTSA meeting, school board meeting, been on any type of committee in education knows that to be the case. Even though most of our city government comes from the same ideology, there still seems to be a polarization that stops collaboration and progress from happening. While there are many things that I love about the city, we face serious challenges and we need new leadership to come to the table to move this city forward. Inequities continue to exist throughout our communities. Despite billions invested in the homelessness crisis, the problem continues to grow. Our rapidly growing city does not have the infrastructure that fully supports adequate access to affordable housing, a comprehensive transit system, or a full plan to combat climate change and the environmental impacts our decisions have on the future. Our most vulnerable populations, including our kids, need help, and we need leaders who want to come together to get things done. We need leaders like me who will advance our progressive ideals in a practical, get things done kind of way. I'm running for the city council because we need new leadership to revive Seattle with renewed partnerships and accountability. Thank you for the time to introduce myself tonight. I look forward to working with you and hope for your support.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us, Corey. Really appreciate it. All right, up next we have running for Seattle School Board Director, District 5 is Michelle Sarju.
Michelle let me know she does not have a hand raised, so she is thumbs up. Asked her to unmute.
Yeah, I'm on.
Great.
Can I have, before you start the timer, can I have about 10 seconds to do a descriptive introduction for people who have access needs?
Please do.
Okay. My name is Michelle Sarju. I'm African American. I'm wearing a black scarf with a yellow sweater and I think glasses that have some blue in it. Okay, I'm ready now.
Great. Yeah, please begin.
As I stated, my name is Michelle Sarju, and I'm running for Seattle Public Schools School Board Director, District 5. As the mom of 3 former Seattle Public Schools students, I'm running because I believe every student, and I do mean every student, should have access to a high-quality public school education. Far too often, race, zip code, socioeconomic status, first language determines who has access to a high quality and equitable education. As of the result of COVID, we are now presented with an opportunity to make necessary changes that can result in all SPS students being able to thrive in our classrooms. My high-level priorities are creating policies that will support the emotional and mental health of our next generation of leaders, our students, ensuring that effective policies and programs are established and in place to support the return of all students to our classrooms in the fall. Lastly, but not lastly, creating and installing evidence-based assessment strategies that demonstrate what our students have actually learned and retained. It is time to move away from standardized testing to a more strengths-based assessment approach. I am excited about what SPS can be for all of our students, and I look forward to partnering with all of you to make that happen. We need real change in our district at this time, and I believe as a collaborator, a public health professional, a maternal child health and early learning expert, I have what it takes to do the work on the other side. I would like to thank you all for supporting my campaign for Seattle Public Schools School Board Director, District 5.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us, Michelle, and thank you for providing the accessible introduction. That's not something I'd seen before. It's new to me, but really appreciate it. So yes, thank you to all of the candidates for joining us tonight. I'm not aware of any others who are here. If you are a candidate who has not spoken to us this election cycle already, please raise your hand or send me a message. And we can give you time. This is, again, our last regular meeting before our endorsements meeting, where we're going to hear from all of the candidates running again. Hello, Peter. I see you are here. You
have I spoken before? I can't remember, Scott.
You have.
Okay,
so
I'm sorry.
you.
I've done so many things that I just forgot. That's fine.
Yeah,
I'll sit back. Thank you.
Thank you for being here, Peter.
Okay, of course.
All right, great. So not seeing anyone else, we will get moving through the rest of our program here. I believe that I saw that all of our 43rd representatives are here. Morgan, is that correct?
I'm taking a look now.
Okay, and I guess I will put the question to them. I know we are moving things up because we had to adjust our schedule a little bit, but if you all are ready to go now, would love to move into our legislative session recap. If we need some more time, we can do committee reports first.
Yeah, I see two.
Right. Great. Yeah, I guess I will put it out. I see Nicole has her hand raised. Jamie and Frank, if you are here, if you could raise your hands as well. I see Frank, then I think I saw Jamie. All right, looks like everybody's here. Morgan, if we could get folks unmuted, that would be great. All right. Thank you all for joining us. Really appreciate you being here with us tonight. Many of you know, these are our 43rd district representatives representing us in Olympia, and then also I think from home at times this session. So joining us, we have Senator Jamie Pedersen, Representative Frank Chopp, and then Representative Nicole Macri, and they're going to give us a rundown of everything that happened in Olympia. I know many of us have seen reports about how this was the most progressive legislative session in a long time. A lot happened, in the first few months, and then a lot happened in the last few days, which I think some of us are still getting caught up on. So would love to hear from each of you, the things you're most excited about that happened. I don't know if one of you wants to volunteer to start us off. I can pick someone, but we'll leave it up to you all too.
I nominate Nicole.
Oh, great. Thanks, Frank.
All right, you've been tagged. Yeah, Nicole, if you could, start us off, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, sure. Thanks so much. Hello, everyone. I'm Nicole Macri, and it's great to be here. This is my first 43rd District Democrats meeting of 2021 that I've been able to attend, because we had quite an intense legislative session. And I think quite a productive one. A lot of good things got done. As usual, not everything we wanted, but I would say in the 5 years I've been in the legislature, probably more got accomplished this session in terms of progressive policy and budget investments than I've seen before. This year, I served on 2 committees in the House. I was vice chair of the Appropriations Committee and continued to serve on the House Healthcare and Wellness Committee. And being on the Budget Committee was, I think, a very unprecedented experience this session. As you all know, because of the COVID pandemic, there just was a lot of uncertainty and continues to be some uncertainty. And we really didn't know what we needed to prepare for as we headed into the legislative session. But we did know we were going into session with a recent federal COVID stimulus package having been passed in late December, and went to work on an early action COVID response package that was signed by the governor in early February. It was a $2.2 billion investment. We Democrats had a commitment to get federal dollars both from the December package as well as from the previous CARES Act out of the Capitol and into communities across the state as quickly as possible. And from there, we immediately pivoted to the work of the biennial budget. And again, that work presented a lot of uncertainty. We had been working on a number of fronts related to progressive revenue reform and simultaneously waiting for news from Washington, D.C. to see if another COVID relief package would be passed. And in fact, it was signed by the president on March 11th, which really pivoted our work on the budget which included billions of dollars in federal relief funds, both essentially pass-through dollars from the federal government in a number of areas, including K-12 and higher ed stabilization funds for reopening schools, for addressing learning loss among students, public health investments, housing stability investments like rent assistance, utility assistance, and mortgage assistance, as well as over $4 billion in discretionary state recovery funds, which the legislature decided how to put forth, broadly speaking, related to COVID response or economic recovery or to address revenue loss. And so those activities took up a lot of my time. I can say with confidence, I believe the budget we passed was the most progressive budget, and I would say the best budget, the best state budget that we've had the opportunity to pass, and includes billions of dollars in relief directly related to COVID, as well as investments in enhancements in state services, as well as major reforms in our tax code, most notably the passage of the capital gains tax and the passage of the investment in the working families tax credit. So I spent most of my time working on budget, but I also spent a lot of time on the 2 or 3 policy areas that I historically have spent a lot of time on. That includes issues around housing justice. I have been working for several years to pass a just cause eviction protection state statute, which we did pass, and the governor signed into law, and as well as working closely on COVID eviction response policy, which also was passed. In addition to that, worked a great deal on healthcare access and in particular on behavioral health. There were 2 groundbreaking policies that passed the legislature this session, really towards the end of session. And one was to establish a new 3-digit line, a 988 line, for both suicide prevention and behavioral health crisis response. The 988 number was established through federal statute. Washington State actually leads states in establishing a path to set up 988 call centers and coordinate with the 911 system, and build out a behavioral health crisis response that will help us and communities across the state pivot away to some extent from law enforcement interactions related to behavioral health crisis and more towards a healthcare centered behavioral health response. And then of course, in the final days of session, the legislature passed a bill, quote, in response to the State v. Blake Supreme Court decision, which found that the Washington statute on simple drug possession was unconstitutional. And while I voted against the final bill because it reinstituted a criminal charge, although much reduced, I worked very closely with the sponsors of the bill on the behavioral health elements of the bill. It includes nearly $100 million in investments around behavioral health to really divert people from law enforcement when they have interaction with law enforcement related to drug possession or drug use, and establishing a statewide response team based on the LEAD model, which was established here in the United States, first in Seattle, the Law Enforcement Assisted Diversion Program, as well as other outreach and recovery support. So it was a very active session and busy session. And we are fortunate to have also Frank and Jamie here who led on additional issues that they will talk about. And I imagine folks will have questions. The other issue that I led on, which was to bring forth a bill that I'd been working on for several years to establish a mandate for Washington State to move to 100% zero emission new vehicles by the year starting in the year 2030. We got that bill actually incredibly far, including being able to amend a goal. So it got reduced from a mandate to a goal, setting Washington State up as the first state to set such an ambitious goal to move to 100% clean cars in 2030. The governor actually vetoed that section of the bill due to its entanglement with another issue that got amended in the Senate related to establishing a road usage charge. However, the bill that passed, which is House Bill 1287, makes much more tangible steps forward to building out the electric charging infrastructure and improving our building codes statewide in anticipation of a 100% electric future and a move away from fossil fuels in our transportation sector. I will continue to push for the 2030 goal, which will continue to be the most ambitious policy conversation around moving to zero emission vehicles in the country. But I understand why the governor vetoed it. I don't agree with the fact that he vetoed it, but the legislative process sometimes yields the imperfect results. And I guess that was one the governor just didn't want to tolerate. So those were a lot of the issues that I worked on most intimately. And there was a lot of other good work that happened in related to climate change that I'm sure we'll talk more about, but I feel like I've been talking for a long time, and so I'm going to turn it over to Frank to talk next.
Okay, thanks, Nicole. If that's okay with you, Jamie, I'll go next. Yeah, all right. Look, we made major advances this session on many fronts. It was great to work with Nicole and Jamie and many other key legislators to advance a very progressive agenda across the board. I'll talk about three areas that I was focusing on, and many of those things overlapped with what Nicole said and what Jamie worked on as well, because we worked as a team on several issues, helping out the issue, but also helping out each other. So the first issue was I was able to lead the effort with Tana Sen and Claire Wilson and Andy Billig and others, plus a whole coalition of advocates to vastly increase funding for childcare and early learning. We essentially doubled the state funding for that. And it's a major step forward. It's called Fair Start for Kids Act. I about 2 years ago actually proposed that the strategy be to vastly increase funding for childcare and early learning and funded with a capital gains tax. And I was so happy to see it actually unfold that way in the end that we passed the final bill. Not only the Fair Start for Kids Act, which increased the funding, doubled it basically for childcare, but also then funded it with the capital gains tax. And that was a part of the strategy from literally almost 2 years ago. And it all fell into place with a lot of hard work from advocates, key legislators, et cetera. The other thing I want to say about that in this first section is that we made the investment, which is critical and is highly supported by the public. people say, yes, we need childcare and early learning for God's sake, because why do you need childcare? Well, so people can go to work or go to school, for example. And so it's critical to the economy and so many other issues. But in addition, we wanted to make sure that we address social and racial equity as well, because the percentage of the young kids that are benefiting from this, I'd say at least 50% are students of color, young people of color, and the workforce is over 50% people of color from all different backgrounds and whatnot. So it was a racial and social equity thing, as well as a child care and early learning thing. And the next thing I want to say about this is that we have to rise up and we're already starting to organize an effort to defend it, because there is folks that are out there that are going to be taxed with this capital gains. And the strategy was that, well, if it was tied to childcare, it'd be hard to repeal it. So I worked with Jamie on that one, as well as others, to make sure that the connection was there. So the money raised from that goes into the Education Legacy Trust Fund, which we set up years ago for the estate tax, and then dedicated it for childcare and early learning, so that when the voters, if they ever see an effort to repeal it at the ballot box, they'll see essentially, hey, this is funding for childcare and early learning funded by this. Do you really want to cut that? So our strategy is to defend it vigorously over the next 2 years, maybe this year, maybe next year. We don't know when it's come. There will also be legal strategies to repeal it, basically, and that's where Jamie could maybe talk a little more about that part. That's another effort. So we're organizing a coalition with a lot of people to defend this thing, because it's massively important and massively progressive. Okay, second area is behavioral health and housing. I work very closely with Nicole, who actually helped me out by putting in all my budget provisos in the operating budget. I had to say that, Nicole. I really appreciate it. I didn't think you actually covered all of them, but then we went through and my God, they were all there. It's like, you know, so I personally want to thank you, Nicole, in front of everybody, because that helped fund a lot of key issues in the operating budget. For example, we made major progress in behavioral health investments, also including behavioral health workforce development, because there's obviously a consensus to invest much more heavily in terms of behavioral health. Well, if you do that, then you need workers. If we want to get away from police actions, we got to have more community mental health workers, for example. And so we invested in several fronts with several different organizations, including the University of Washington Behavioral Health Institute at Harborview Medical Center. And in the capital budget, we did a hell of a lot for behavioral health facilities, including one of the things I care deeply about, the University of Washington's Behavioral Health Teaching Hospital, which is being constructed up at Northwest Hospital in North Seattle to increase the number of beds that we have for people who are suffering from behavioral health things. And then we also, Nicole did a huge amount of work on the housing issue. One of the things I wanted to extra emphasize was the documented credit fee that we instituted, which brought in $150 million per year. And much of that will go for rental assistance so people can avoid being evicted. But also it's a funding source that could go towards permanent supportive housing, because we have to have housing for people to go to as they need because of their behavioral health situations, either mental illness or substance use disorders. So there's a lot of work there, a lot of work to do, but we made major progress. Third area is in terms of the climate issue. I started a group called the Climate Crew. It was 43rd District members. It's open to anybody, and about once a week, in fact, it was once a week, we'd meet. We'd usually have 20, 25 members, including people like Jeff Berner and Arvin Morris and Efrain. I see him there too, who participated in the effort to basically work together to track the environmental issues, and including Nicole Macri's bill for the electric cars. You know, I say the future is electric, and I was pleased to be able to be the second co-sponsor on her bill. So we made progress there, but we had a whole matrix tracking a whole bunch of different issues. So it was really fun to go through it and track the progress, and also get real dialogue going in terms of how to deal with the climate proposals dealing with the clean fuel standard, which was passed by the House for 3 years now, and now finally the Senate was able to get the votes to pass it. We're pleased that got done, but also the cap and invest proposal that Joe Fitzgibbon worked on from the House, and others from the Senate, like Reuben Carlisle and of course the governor's involvement. So we made progress there, but there was a big disagreement about which model to use, cap and invest or what's called Washington Strong, which was more of a carbon tax. So we had lengthy discussions at a group, and I really enjoyed it because it was direct contact between folks from the 43rd. In fact, several people on the Zoom call tonight were part of that. And I appreciate the opportunity to work together on that. Last thing I want to say is that what made this thing all possible to make the leap into a more progressive agenda, including the progressive budgets, was because of voters in Georgia. I wanted to put in the capital budget a statue of Stacey Abrams, but they wouldn't go for that because well, we're paying for another statue of to go back to Washington, D.C. But what they did in Georgia made all the world a difference. We would be short billions of dollars from the federal government if Georgia had not delivered for those two senators. It's just massive, including helping on all these areas of investments that made it possible. So majorities matter, voter turnout matters, and not just the progressive agenda, but a progressive community organizing approach to actually secure the victories and build the majorities. So with that, I thank you very much for the opportunity to talk with you tonight.
All right, well, I guess that means it's my turn. I do want to just start by picking up where Frank left off before I go into the policy and the session and say, if you value what happened this last session and you remember what it was like when the Republicans were in control of the Senate, then I really encourage you to get involved and stay involved for the next 18 months or so. We are likely to be facing a very difficult midterm election in 2022. And, you know, and on the Senate side, we have 16 Democrats and 8 Republicans up. There's really probably only one seat that we have a reasonable chance of picking up. And we have at least 3 that are in jeopardy in a difficult year. So it's going to be a time for everybody to try to pull together and help to defend the kinds of policies that we were able to pass this year. So this morning I was in Tacoma at the Eastside Community Center where the governor signed into law 12 police accountability bills. All of those bills had come through my committee. And I wanted to run through them briefly, just because I think it's a really good example of what we can do if we collaborate. We had very close and consistent collaboration from last summer and all through the fall and winter into the session between the House and the Senate and the governor's office and members of the community. We committed last year after the killing of George Floyd that we were going to do this work. It was a high priority for both the Senate Democrats and the House Democrats. And we worked really closely and collaboratively without a lot of care for who was going to be the listed prime sponsor to make sure that these policies got done. Starting with a few of the House bills, we passed House Bill 1054 by Representative Johnson, which banned a whole series of bad and abused police tactics, including neck restraints and chokeholds, no-knock warrants. It will start the process of demilitarizing the police by banning a lot of bad devices and pieces of equipment that police departments have acquired. One example of that is something called a long-range acoustic device, otherwise known as a sound cannon, which has been used in places like Ferguson, Missouri, to terrorize people by blasting out a sound that's deafening. The Seattle Police Department acquired one of those to use against protesters. Glad to say that that will now be illegal. We also, although we didn't go as far as I would have liked and fought for, we significantly restricted the use of tear gas on protesters. And we also significantly restricted the ability to do high-speed chases. House Bill 1267 by Representative Entman and requested by the governor's office will establish a new office of independent investigations to make sure that every deadly force incident in our state gets investigated by something other than the police department that was involved. We passed House Bill 1310, also by Representative Johnson, that establishes a statewide use of force standard and policies and procedures that will set a floor consistent across the entire state for that. House Bill 1088 by Representative Lovick has to do with the so-called Brady list, making sure that officers who are untrustworthy and therefore can't be called as witnesses are consistently reported to prosecutors' offices, and that there's consistent policy around that. And House Bill 1089 by Representative Ramos authorizes the state auditor to check how police departments are doing in following all of the processes about investigating for use of force. House Bill 1223 by Representative Pedersen from the 21st District, not to be confused with the former Representative Pedersen from the 43rd District. Strong's bill is the electronic recordation of custodial interrogations, which sounds very formal, but it just means that whenever a juvenile is arrested or whenever somebody who's accused of a felony is arrested, the police must electronically record, ideally video record, any interaction with that person so that there's good evidence. That protects the police and it protects the accused person as well. So those were the salient House bills. In the Senate, we passed 4 big bills. Senate Bill 5259 by the fabulous new Senator Tawana Nobles from the 28th District, which will require collection of data on all use of force incidents statewide so that we have a good idea of what's going on in the field and can continue to make good policy and reforms in the future. Senate Bill 5263 by Senator Frocht, which gets rid of this terrible rule that we have had since the 80s called the Felony Bar Rule. That essentially said that if the police accused someone of being in the process of committing a felony when the police injured or killed the person, then there was no legal recourse for the survivors of that person against the police or the employing department. So it stopped a whole bunch of accountability and civil lawsuits. Senate Bill 5066 by Senator Dhingra creates a duty to intervene and a duty to report misconduct by police so that we don't have anything ever in our state like what happened with Derek Chauvin crushing the life out of George Floyd and other officers just standing there watching that happen. And finally, Senate Bill 5051, which was my bill called State Accountability and Oversight, will reform the Criminal Justice Training Commission and significantly expand its powers to decertify officers who abuse the public trust. So if they commit a felony or if they use excessive force or if they fail to at their duty to intervene or duty to report misconduct by other officers, there will be a process completely separate from their local disciplinary process, from anything that's under their local collective bargaining agreement, for the state as the agency that gives them the license to carry a badge and gun to take away that right to a badge and gun. So, it is a really comprehensive package. I think it's fair to say that that we in our state did more than any other state in the last year in terms of moving police accountability along. That was only a part of the criminal justice and racial equity reforms that we did during the last session, which spanned everything from training for medical school students and school district administrators and teachers and folks at universities, to the work that we did on reform of the most commonly charged crime in our state, DWLS 3, driving with license suspended 3, by preventing courts from and the Department of Licensing from suspending the license of someone who just can't pay a traffic ticket. So the driving while poor, it's sometimes referred to. So we I think accomplished an awful lot. It is only the beginning, I think, of the work that we will have to do in coming years but we made some significant inroads. Finally, I just wanted to comment a little bit on capital gains. The Senate, the House has been there for a while. The Senate has been the sticking point. And I was happy to play a role in getting that over the finish line, and then have been working with some of the advocates on the legal strategy, both beforehand and then afterwards, for defending that tax and making sure that it comes out okay. A critical move that we made after a lot of consultation and lots of conversations was to include a very simple sentence from the state constitution that said that the tax was necessary for the state government, the support of state government and its existing institutions, including the Education Legacy Trust Fund. And as a result, we had a very satisfying letter from the Secretary of State to Tim Eyman a couple of weeks ago, returning his $5 filing fee for the referendum that he wanted to bring on the capital gains tax, and telling him that it was not subject to referendum. Too bad. Here's your $5 back. We're working very hard on there was already one legal challenge. There will likely be another one. I have to say, with the current Supreme Court, I think that the most likely outcome is not even that they're going to take advantage of the very careful work that we did to say that it's an excise tax and not a property tax. They are likely to swing for the fences and say, gosh, since you asked, or maybe even if you, well, they are asking, since you asked, we're going to tell you that our 60 and 80-year-old cases and 90-year-old case that said that income was property and therefore that you could not do a progressive income tax or an income tax in excess of 1% in our state, that those cases are overruled, and that is within the democratic process again within our state, which I think will open up a whole new and productive conversation for us about reform of our worst in the country tax system. So those of you who've been around these meetings for a few years know that I've been hoping for this outcome for a while. I'm very happy to have that process underway. So with that, I hope we have some time still for questions, but I want to thank you all for the just incredible support. I think our office, probably all of our offices, got roughly the same, something in the neighborhood of 13 to 14,000 emails from folks this year. I had multiple days in my committee where there were over 2,000 people signed in, often in support of really good and important policies. For example, the ban on open carry of weapons at the Capitol and around protests. That was a big volume day in terms of participation. But the upwelling of support from the 43rd is just astonishing. And I think that I speak probably for all three of us when I say that it is such an incredible privilege to represent this district, which is so progressive and so engaged and active in giving us support and advice about how to pursue really good policy. That's a huge privilege to represent you all. So thank you, and I look forward to the questions.
Yeah, thanks so much to you all. So if folks have questions, please do raise your hand. I will just comment that after the year that Tim Eyman has, I'm surprised he has $5 to file a referendum. I thought Bob Ferguson took care of that. And one question that I had messaged to me was, you all just covered a lot of ground. Some folks are wondering if there's a good place they can go for a summary to read about that and to share with others, all the good work you are doing. Can you point us in the right direction there?
So, one thing that I'll say is 2 years ago, I started doing most of my newsletters post-session and sort of issue by issue, and that'll be going on. I've sent out emails so far about police accountability, about climate change, about housing and homelessness. And we have another, at least the next 8 or 10 planned. So speaking for me, if you go to my homepage on the Senate Democrats website, then you can see all of those back issues. And it'll take a while to record everything that we did in this session, but that's a good resource, and those things are easily shareable. And I think the host may need to unmute Nicole. The way this works is that once you mute yourself, you have to be unmuted by the host.
All right, Nicole,
Yeah.
I think you're unmuted.
Thank you. Yeah, we're doing something similar in terms of the wrap up, and I think that works better, but I'm definitely open to feedback about that. There's just so much that got done, and what I have found is that constituents in the 43rd appreciate a much deeper dive on the policy issues than constituents in other districts, and so there's some template stuff that caucus communication staff does for all members, and it consistently, I find it's not as in-depth as I know people want to hear about. So I think we're trying to complement Jamie. We came up with a similar schedule, and as usual, Jamie is quicker at communicating with constituents and leading on some of the same areas that we had planned. So we'll try to complement one another. But if you haven't signed up for our official newsletters, you can go to the legislative webpage and find your way to our pages and sign up for our e-newsletters. It goes out to, I don't know, that tens of thousands of people in the district. So it's a good way to stay on top of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. So we will move into questions. So Will, I see you with your hand up first.
Yes. So I had a quick question with a more detailed one. The quick question is, as I understand it, the capital gains tax only applies if we have 250,000 of capital gains, which are not inside our retirement plans and are not part of our personal house sale capital gains. Is that correct? And then my second question is, was there any progress done on high-speed rail in our state connecting to other states and provinces? Thanks.
So I'm happy to take the capital gains piece. You're correct. And just to emphasize, it's not just your house, it's all real estate. Anything that would be subject to the real estate excise tax is not subject to the capital gains tax. In addition, just to be clear, if you had $250,001 of capital gains, you would pay the 7 cents on that last dollar that you earned. So put another way, if you had $300,000 of capital gains in a single year, this is what we're talking about, folks, $300,000 of capital gains in a single year, your tax bill would be a whopping $3,500 on that $300,000 of gains, right? I mean, so anyway, it's it's astonishing how much revenue it will raise, and it just gives you a sense of how much money is concentrated in the hands of some people who ought to be bearing a greater share of the state government in our state.
Yeah. And they're concentrated in a few districts, by the way, including the 43rd district.
Including the 43rd.
41st. I think in the 43rd, we have about 800 people likely to pay for it in the future, based on what they've done in the past. So literally the districts that really led the way on this thing with the child care thing on the capital gains, that's the 41st is where Tana Sen lives. And of course the 43rd with us. I was pleased to have so much support from the 43rd saying we ought to do this, even though we have more people going to pay it than pretty much almost any other district in the state.
And the second question?
Yeah, it was about high-speed rail, I think.
Yeah, Nicole or Frank, I think that there's money for study of the Amtrak Cascades work on that's in the transportation budget. I think bigger, if you think about the three budgets, we had the operating budget that Nicole's leading on was in the best shape. our revenues, our sort of base revenues recovered, and then we had extra money from the federal government, and we passed some additional revenue. The capital budget is in reasonably good shape, benefiting from the uptick in revenues on the operating budget. The transportation budget is a disaster. People weren't driving. It's mostly based on gas taxes. So there is active work going on right now to try to put together a transportation revenue package. But until we have new revenue and a new package, then we're just kind of keeping the lights on in the transportation budget. And there's not a lot of money for additional investments.
Thank you.
Great, yeah, thanks, Will. All right, up next, Paul has his hand up.
Hi. Question about House Bill 1323 about long-term care. It provides exemptions for people to buy long-term care on the open market. This feels like it's going to create an inequitable and regressive tax system by allowing people who make more money to just opt out and to opt out permanently, while people who make less than $100,000 are basically going to be forced in to pay taxes. Is there anything that can be done to fix this so that it's not a regressive tax?
Yeah, Paul, that's a great question. And that is a bill that got amended along the way. So the intent of the bill was actually to narrow that one-time opt-out. So for those who are unfamiliar, there is a couple of years ago, I think it was, we passed the first in the nation social insurance program, a long-term care trust act. It has been rebranded as the Washington Cares Fund, and will go into effect by through a modest payroll deduction of, I think it's 58 cents a month, or 58 cents a bi-monthly. I can't remember.
It's 0.58%
of the annual
of your
earnings.
taxable income.
Thank you for that. I will admit that I am a commissioner on the Long-Term Care Trust Commission and sit on their risk management committee. And one of the issues that the bill attempted to do several things to solidify the program, including providing an option for tribes to opt in, and then closing this window for a one-time opt-out. Like this federal Social Security program, this social insurance program works best when everyone participates. So minimizing the opportunities to opt out is really important. So private long-term care insurance can be expensive. Most people don't get it. And there have been solvency issues because the groups aren't large enough. So having a statewide group is important, because almost everybody needs long-term care of some sort or another. And so through amendment, the window to opt out got pushed out a little bit. I think November is the date that was set in the bill as it passed. But it is, I think, still more narrow than it was before. And the commission is undertaking a public education program, because the payroll deductions will start in 2022, and folks will start to become eligible to draw down the benefit in 2025. So now's the time, between now and January 2022, to really do a lot of education with employers and with workers across the state about how the program is going to work. But the long-term care insurance industry really mounted a very strong opposition, which was very unfortunate. They, I think, see this as the opportunity to say, hey, sign up for private insurance, which is going to be more of a robust benefit, and you won't have to pay this tax. So they're really sort of latching on to this opportunity that this program is getting started. to confuse Washington residents who, once you opt out, you can never opt in again. And so that is, it was an unfortunate position they took, because just like other kinds of social insurance, there is opportunity for folks to buy add-on, like a Medicare Advantage plan or whatever, that the industry could have taken a different approach, but opted to really battle on this bill. So it's an improvement over the status quo. You all may recall one of the big risk factors that the program really is encountering, though, although not for a very long time, is that there was a constitutional amendment put on the ballot last year, I believe it was, and it failed. And that constitutional amendment was to allow for the trust to invest in securities, so slightly more risky investment strategies, which are the same as the pension funds for state employees and how they are invested. That is allowed through a constitutional, it is allowable under the Constitution, but only for those pension funds and not for the long-term care trust funds. And so there will be an effort to bring that back at some point, because we'll start to see solvency issues when we look at year 75 of the program. And similar to the federal Social Security program, we don't want to set up a dynamic where earlier beneficiaries get a richer benefit or a sooner benefit or pay a lower premium than later beneficiaries. And so there'll be work probably to bring that back, do an education campaign and bring it back to the ballot. But that, I think, will ultimately address some of the concerns you're talking about, Paul.
If I could just add, this is an area that Washington State leads the nation on, the long-term care trust fund, as well as the home care program, as well as things like paid family leave, okay? And in fact, recently, I don't know if you watch John Oliver on Sunday nights, I get it, and watch it occasionally. And he was talking about the crisis in long-term care across the nation and how terrible it is that people don't want to necessarily be in nursing homes. They want care in their home so they can stay home longer in their life. And they said, this is terrible across the country, but there's one state that is leading the nation. And then up popped the picture of Washington State. So I just wanted to say that, hey, it is damn good. It ain't perfect, Paul. I realize that there's some important questions to answer. We're proud to have Nicole on the governing board for that, but it's a great leap forward, essentially to expand Social Security for a lot more people.
And if I could just add one more thing, I just want to push back on the idea that this is a regressive tax. The rate is the same from zero to infinity, but the benefit is the same as long as you work the minimum number of hours, which is 500. If you're making minimum wage and pay 0.58% in for your 10, 5 out of the 10 years, then you're going to get exactly the same benefit as if you make $1 million a year and pay $5,800 a year in taxes. The benefit is $36,500 indexed to inflation. It doesn't go up if you pay more into the system.
Right.
So it really is it's a pretty progressive policy. I was talking to the executive director last weekend, Ben Vegti, and their calculation is that 98% of the people who pay in are going to get more in benefits out than they will pay in taxes over the course of their career. The other 2% will be upside down, but good for the system because it's appropriate that those folks subsidize.
So I'd love to follow up with you all on this, because what I anticipate, I'm in the tech industry, what I anticipate is that everyone who makes more than about $120,000 a year is going to opt out. And that means that none of that money is going to be collected from the current generation of people who are making more than that amount. And that, will have severe implications, I think, for the solvency of it, as well as that is where the regressive nature of this comes from. People who are now 18 and have not yet entered the workforce, like at that point, that generation will start to become a progressive tax because they won't be able to opt out. But everyone who is currently in the workforce who's making more than about $100,000 will do better by going with private insurance or
I'm just going to push
dropping it and then just saving the money themselves for when they're older. So
yeah, so Paul, I'm just going to push back on that a little bit because I'm the general counsel of a company that has over 2,000 workers with an average salary of, probably $120,000 across our workforce. We have looked really carefully at this, but for a few people who are so close to retirement that they won't have time to get vested, it actually doesn't pencil out for people. You have to make a lot more money for it to make sense for you to be upside down on the base benefit. And then if you start looking at the actual cost of a policy that would qualify for the opt-out, it's going to be way more expensive than what.
So I don't want to take up too much more time here, but that is incorrect. I can buy a policy for about $800, which is a significant discount from what I would pay with the tax.
I don't think that's going to qualify for an opt-out.
It actually is qualifying for an opt-out.
But you don't know that yet.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to step in here. I think we should take this conversation offline. Paul and I happen to work at the same place, and I think we got the same email about this. And so let's get this figured out offline. So thank you for the discussion there. All right. Up next, we have former 43rd Democrats Chair Alexa Holling is going to ask a question.
Hey everyone, I'll be quick. I was just curious, I know it's early, do we have any insight as to whether or not session next year will be remote or some kind of hybrid?
I expect we're going to be back in
Zoom so much we'll probably have a Zoom again. No, I'm just kidding.
I think we're going to be in person.
Yeah, I agree.
I think just about everybody will be vaccinated. I do think that we are permanently going to change the way that we do public hearings. So I expect that remote testimony is going to become a permanent fixture in how we have people participate in our process.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Alexa. Lars, you're up next.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to say thank you for supporting workers and workers on the waterfront. Thank you for your support of SB 5026. It's really important, and I appreciate each of your support of that. I'm a member of the Masters Mates and Pilots Union, and I just had a question if any of you could speak to protecting the Washington State Ferry system and the Washington State Ferries particularly, and what seem to be more frequent attacks and threats of outsourcing to either private entities or to private contractors that are brought in to do work on the ferries. Thank you.
Well, I grew up in East Bremerton, so I used the ferries a lot when I was growing up, and even today I do. We are adamantly opposed to the privatization of the state ferry system. I'm very proud of the state ferries, and I know that people across the state will rise up against any real strong effort to privatize it. But I appreciate you bringing it up because we always have to be vigilant about this.
Absolutely. All right. I thought I saw John Vito's hand, but I no longer see it. Are you still here, John? All right. I think I had John's question though. If you did.
Do you hear me?
Yes, there you are.
Thanks. Hey, yeah, so I just want to get the representatives and senators' response to the debacle that occurred yesterday where Inslee recapitulated the betrayal of our tribes by exercising the line item veto to eliminate the provisions that they negotiated in good faith in the Climate Commitment Act.
Yeah, so there we have a few different things that happened in those bills yesterday. The legislature is going to be suing again, unfortunately, to overturn the governor's veto of a subsection. He ought to know better, honestly. So, so that's going to happen. I suspect on the other provisions that there might be support. I didn't talk about this, but one of the things that happened late in the session was that a bill to protect houseboats in the 43rd district and the 36th primarily, we actually he vetoed my bill last year, and the legislature overrode that veto this year. I suspect that there may be some interest, particularly on the tribal consultation issue in the Climate Commitment Act. There may be interest in an override of that veto. The complication is no Republicans supported the bill, so I don't know if they're going to be happy about helping with an override or not. They might enjoy just voting against Inslee, but that does make it a little bit more complicated.
Yeah, I personally can't believe the governor did that. I mean, the consternation is caused not just among the tribes, but other folks on this thing. In fact, when we considered this bill in our caucus, a big selling point for it was the consultation with the tribes and also environmental justice issues across the board. So I don't know what he was thinking there. And I agree with Jamie that it doesn't even make legal sense. So he's got a problem there. And I'm glad that we're going to sue him on that point, not just because of this policy, but because of the general concept there. So I still can't figure out why he did that.
Yeah. So could I follow up? Is it okay?
Very, very quickly.
Yeah, I just want to know the subsection that you're referring to, is that if that lawsuit were to succeed, then the tribal consultation would be reinstated? Is that the?
No, as I understand it, and I haven't independently verified this in the bill, but I think the subsection was the piece of the Climate Commitment Act that ties it to the transportation, the passage of a transportation package. That's a whole section in the Clean Fuel Standard. I think that it's a whole section on tribal consultation. So he does have the legal authority to veto it, but I think that's the question of whether we can override the veto. So yeah. I suspect that there will be an effort there.
Okay, thank you.
And I would support it, certainly.
Yeah, thanks, John. All right, I think we have time for one last question. Claire, go for it.
Hey, hi, how are you? I wanted to thank you all, and especially Pedersen, for being so responsive this session. And I really quickly wanted to know if you guys had any plans to address the continuing issues with the unemployment system, and specifically the overpayment notices that people are getting from ESD that are still burying them and locking up all of their finances. So I know the session's over, but just in the future, what are the future plans? Thank you.
Well, we're going to be working with Mike Sells in the House, who's the chair of the Labor Committee there, Labor and Workforce Development Committee, to figure out what the next steps are. There was a lot to cover this session. We made some progress on the unemployment-related issues, but there really needs to be a real careful look to improve the system so that it doesn't end up having this the financial difficulties with people stealing the money, basically, but also in terms of what's the right amount of benefits and also how to get the system to work better for people who are applying for the benefits. So, you know, if you could contact my office, we've set up meetings last year to actually start that kind of discussion about what kind of specific improvements. Also, Karen Kaiser in the Senate has been involved in some of the ideas around that. One of our biggest things, though, was to provide funding for undocumented workers to also get essentially an unemployment benefit. And when you looked at the 20 different ideas to help on the unemployment insurance system, one of the key high priorities was to extend those benefits with state funding to the undocumented workers who are working. They get laid off, they should get unemployment benefits as well. The federal government doesn't allow us to use federal supported system for that. So that was the priority, but we got to do a lot more work in this regard. So I appreciate the question very much.
Yeah, Claire, I'll just add, all three of our offices have been working really closely together, led by our legislative assistants, Sam, Penny, and Daniel in our respective offices to coordinate on getting really hundreds and hundreds of requests from constituents who get these chilling notices, either denials up front or the overpayment notices, which if you've experienced, are just churned out by the database. It seems like the agency is, held hostage by their database system and how it works. So we've given a lot of feedback. Personally, I'm glad there will be a change of leadership. They have an interim commissioner, and I think soon we'll have a permanent commissioner. And I think that leadership change is going to be essential to the culture change. We did put some significant resource in the budget. So the ESD budget, like historically, is kind of a non-issue, but because of the huge increase in claims over the last year, it became very apparent that the entire system and agency was stretched beyond its capacity. And so there'll be some capacity adds to deal more quickly with appeals and problem resolutions. We did put money in the budget for that. And I do think it's going to come down to leadership for there to be a change in culture in the agency. And I know I did. I assume Jamie and Frank each met with the former commissioner. And I'm sure she had many painful conversations with many legislators. But it's just unacceptable because the economic impacts are real, but the emotional trauma is enormous. And I'm CC'd on every request that my legislative assistant sends to ESD, so I'm able to just really read the stories from every constituent and really have real-time information that we can bring back to ESD about some, I think inappropriate and incompetent service to the people of Washington. I know they were overwhelmed. Nobody expected this, but at this point, like 15 months into this pandemic, there's no excuse for just the level and type of customer service. We thought we were turning a corner. A few weeks ago, it seemed like they were getting quicker and more appropriate responses. But just in recent days, I've heard news stories from constituents who continue to struggle with ESD.
Thank you, Claire, and thank you all. So we are out of time now, but really appreciate all of your efforts this past session going forward. Thanks for taking the time to speak with us. I did get a message that Paul was going to email you all to follow up on the LTC thing afterwards. And yeah, look forward to seeing you all again shortly. So.
Great. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. All right, so getting back to our agenda, I'm going to share that here for everybody. So we are going to dive right into our committee and officer reports. I'm going to start us off here by saying last month we did a presentation on the potential to restart a 43rd District Democrats Political Action Committee. We had told you all to expect something in May. It is just taking us a little longer to get all the details on that nailed down. So we have made progress. We will bring a final vision to you all as soon as we can, hopefully in June. So things are on track. We are making good progress, but wanted to make sure you all had that update and we didn't leave you hanging. So with that, I think Morgan, you have an update to share with folks.
I do, yes. So as we all know, endorsements, our meeting is next month in June. Before that happens, we have officially scheduled a candidate forum with Seattle City Council candidates. That forum will be June 3rd, Thursday, June 3rd at 7 p.m., moderated by Erica Barnett, local journalist and author. So very excited for that. I'm going to drop the link to the Action Network event in the chat, and then you can RSVP for the meeting link and for a form, a Google form to fill out if you have specific questions for the candidates. I wanted to ask, I think Sam, our elections chair, is here, whether he had anything to add to that. But I'm
Nope.
pretty excited for this. Okay,
Looking
cool.
forward to sharing that with all of you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That is all.
Okay, great. Thank you, Morgan and Sam, for putting that together for us. All right, I think Cody Olson, our PCO chair, has an announcement for PCOs. There's Cody. And I will say, if you are a 43rd board member who has a report to give, please raise your hand and we will get you called on.
Yeah, I do have a PCO thing. So we are going to do this week something called a listening canvas, or in this case, it'll be a listening phone bank. And it's something that we've done before as the 43rd, but not yet under my tenure as the PCO chair, but it's something I'm really excited to get into. And essentially, it's just rather than times when we're reminding folks to vote, which is incredibly important, right now when there's not as much for them to do, to impact things that are happening in Washington in terms of the ballot box. We think, and I think it's a good idea to reach out to voters and, both remind them the 43rd exists and also ask them, hey, what issues are on the top of your mind that you would like to see the Democratic Party grappling with, representing, or do we have any blind spots? Are there any things that we should emphasize more? And I tend to find that those are great ways to, to engage people year round and to remind people that we're not just, calling them when we need their vote, that, we're hopefully genuinely trying to put our finger on the pulse of where voters in the 43rd LD are. So everybody, all the PCOs should have gotten that email. That will be happening this Thursday. But also, as I'm saying that, I'm realizing that it's not just PCOs who are invited. Anyone who is interested in calling voters in the 43rd, you are more than welcome. We'll eagerly have you. So I'll share the link in the chat right here. It's pretty simple. It's just a Zoom link. And once folks join the Zoom link, I believe it's 6:30 on Thursday. It's for sure this Thursday. I believe the time that I set is 6 p.m. 6:30 p.m. And when folks join the Zoom meeting, I will in the chat share a joint phone bank that we'll all have, that will have a pretty handy script, and we'll kind of go through any training that people need. So I think it should be a really good time. And if folks have any questions, I'll also put my contact info in the chat. But yeah, hope to see some folks there.
Yeah, thanks so much, Cody. All right, up next is Efren, who's going to talk about Voterfied briefly.
Well, hello. Good evening, everyone. Efren Hudnell, your KCDCC rep, part 1 of 2. So as Scott mentioned, we are in the midst of adopting a platform called Voterfied. It's basically a digital democracy tool. I'm going to try to share my screen to kind of give everybody just a sneak peek of what this will or should look like. Nope. Doesn't look like I can share my screen.
Morgan, can we give...
Yeah, I just made you a co-host, so you should see the ability now.
Boom, there it is. And all right, so what you're looking at is the shell page of the 43rd Legislative District Democrats Voterfied page. So basically what this is, it's a one-stop shop for all of our digital democracy needs, if you will. So from everything from live voting to persistent polling needs will exist on this page. So instead of getting an email reminder for everything, or having poor Annabelle having to send out credential codes for every vote that we do, it will all live here. So the reason why I'm teeing this up now is because this is still very much in beta testing right now, I suppose. In the near week or two, everyone on this call and everyone on our roles should be getting a credential and email, which will have a one-link token. And basically that is your way of accessing this page, that when these test questions turn into actual issues, that your opinion will be asked for. you'll have the ability to log on to the page and express your opinion in real time. So we're really excited to get this rolling. This should free up a lot of bandwidth for in-person meetings that we have and allow us to do business a little bit more efficiently, so that if we don't need to take up airtime during these short meetings that we have, then we can do it in the digital space. So keep an eye out for that email. It'll be coming from voterfied.com. And unless there are any questions, I'm excited to work with all of you getting this thing implemented. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks so much, Efren. So yep, look out for that, everybody, and do let us know if you have any questions. All right, so are there any other committee reports? I see Annabelle's hand is up.
Hey, yeah, I just wanted to chime in on the Voterfied thing, just not to get people's hopes up too much yet. We or not to worry people too much. We're going to look at it as far as whether or not we can use it for our online voting that we have to do at these meetings. We're still assessing that. We got to get our hands on it and play around with it, and also see how all of you react to it. If we really like it, but the membership is like, wow, we don't understand this, then that's one thing. If we're not sure about it, but the membership is like, oh my God, this is the coolest thing ever, then we'll want to make our decision as far as how we handle things going forward accordingly. Thanks.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And I will just say, please give us your feedback. That is the request we're making, so that we can see if this works and make it better and make it work for all of you. So that's our goal, is to get more people involved more easily, and looking forward to getting that done. All right, so up next is Camille, our policy committee chair. This is the Camille.
Hi, everyone. Sorry. Okay, so as far as the policy committee, a lot of you know we were really busy and active during the state session. And since that has finished up, we've now started to shift our focus towards a lot of local things. And we've also been continuing our work with the filibuster elimination resolution that we passed a few months back. The Washington State Committee just passed that same resolution this past month, which we're really excited about. And we're working on scheduling meetings with our senators, Murray and Cantwell. Additionally, we are working on setting up a meeting with Compassion Seattle, who are working on a potentially concerning charter amendment that would mandate more sweeps of our homeless communities. And so hopefully in June at one of our policy committee meetings, we'll be meeting with them, and anyone will be invited to come and ask questions about that charter amendment. And then the final thing that I will talk about is something that was sent out in the agenda, which is a request to sign on to letters from an organization or a campaign that we're working with called the Stay Housed, Stay Healthy campaign. And they are working on 3 eviction moratorium letters, one for the city of Seattle, one for King County, and one that is a Seattle school children family eviction moratorium. So mandating that school children's families and educators cannot be evicted during the school year. And so what we would like to do is put this up for a vote from the membership if we are willing to sign on as an organization to these 3 letters.
Yeah, and could you describe the other 2 letters, Camille? I think they're just asking relevant bodies to extend the eviction moratorium, but please clarify further if needed.
Yes, so yeah, the first one is to Mayor Durkin to extend the current eviction moratorium, which goes through June 30th through the end of 2021. And the same for King County is going to Executive Constantine and Health Officer Duchin to extend the eviction moratorium for King County from June 30th through the end of 2021 as well.
Great. Are there any questions about those letters or the work we've done in coalition with the Stay House, Stay Healthy campaign? Okay, I'm not seeing any hands raised. So the recommendation from the policy committee is that we sign on as an organization, as for the District Democrats, to these letters. Rather than going to a vote, I'll just say, is there any objection or discussion folks want to have about that? If not, then we will approve without objection. Any discussion? All right, I'm not seeing anything. So with no objections, we will sign on to those letters. So thanks to Camille and Paul, and I'm forgetting everybody working on the policy committee, but thanks for the good work. So really appreciate it. Great. All right, are there any last committee reports that I missed? Okay, not seeing any, so we will move to our only remaining resolution. A reminder for folks who got here late that our other resolution on transportation plans was delayed, and we'll take that up another time. So this one is a holdover from our budget conversation last month. So the 43rd board had put together a budget which included funds to be used for providing mutual aid. There was a request to have some more discussion on that. So it's come back in the form here of a resolution. So Maddie, our Vice Chair Maddie Vonhoff, and our fundraising chair Don Daly are going to take us through a bit of a presentation about mutual aid and what this proposal is. Then we'll take some questions, and then we will discuss, amend, as needed. So with that, I will ask Maddie and Dawn to unmute, and we can go from there.
Thanks, Scott. And I think that was actually a great introduction to what this is. And this PowerPoint is essentially just spelling out what is in the resolution. I'm going to share my screen and then turn it over to Dawn to walk us through it. So 1 second. Okay, does this look like a PowerPoint?
It looks like a PowerPoint, Maddie. Thank you for sharing your screen with everyone. Good evening, everyone. I'm so thankful. Go ahead. Can you hear me?
Yes, please. Okay. I'm trying to get the slideshow going with this toolbar blocking it, but please continue.
Okay, thank you. So I'm so thankful we were able to have that wonderful accessibility opening from Michelle Sarju. To follow her shining example, I would like to describe my physical state of being. Even though it's getting dark in my room, I'm wearing a blue and white top, and I have black and purple hair and green cat eye glasses. And I will further go into the descriptions of the PowerPoint slide for those that are live streaming that cannot access visibly the lettering and content and images. We are asking the 43rd Legislative District to give $4,000 of our budget to mutual aid. We are standing in solidarity, and it's a start for positive and direct civil actions within our community. We think it's an important action for the 43rd LD Democrats to begin engaging in mutual aid. This following slide and the PowerPoint slides are all in blue and white. The first statement says direct support is in solidarity with our community, is political and ethical. Please turn to the next slide. Mutual aid is a practice in politics that emphasizes solidarity rather than charity. It means we recognize our well-being, health, and dignity are all bound up in each other. It means that we understand our survival depends on cooperation and not competition. In this particular moment, we see that our health is also dependent on other people's health, and we can literally save each other's lives. Rather than disengage and feel powerless, mutual aid allows us to plug in where we can make the most impact. In other words, building relationships with your neighbors based on trust and common interest. making decisions by consensus rather than relying on authority or hierarchy, sharing things rather than hoarding things, providing all kinds of support ranging from food prep to childcare, translation to emotional support, and recognizing the value of all of them. A political education opportunity where we build the relationships and analysis to understand why we're in the conditions that we're in. A great jumping point for other kinds of organizing and movement work. If you'll turn to the next slide, please. Mutual aid is not quid pro quo transactions. Mutual aid is not only for disasters and crises. Mutual aid is not a charity or a way to save people. Mutual aid is not a reason for social safety net not to exist. Next slide, please. And these next images will be images personally from mutual aid that I have personally been involved in and provided for the community. And this image is a car packed full of boxes full of tarps, fire safety blankets, and Mr. Heater buddies that Song to Sea provided for the CID communities. Next slide, please. Feeding our community. And the photo on the left is an image of a refrigerator packed full of individual lunches that the CID Mutual Aid Group provides to unhoused residents to Beacon Hill, Yesler Terrace, and the International District. And the picture on the right is an image of an API community member distributing fresh produce to supplement the poor nutritional needs of our redlined communities. Next page, slide, please. The health and safety of our community. And the photo on the left is a box full of individualized bags of hygiene products, first aid kits, N95, and other disposable face masks and hand sanitizer. On the photo on the right is a hand washing station. I personally crowdsourced for over 39 hand washing stations for the Northwest with the Northwest Hospitality and Homeless Organizing Community Seattle to provide a fighting chance for our unhoused residents in the city to fight COVID-19 infections when other infrastructural institutions here in the city were not providing for them. Next slide, please. Providing warmth for our community. And this image is a car trunk full of propane tanks. The city of Seattle saw over 134 houseless mortalities due to freezing harsh environments. Mutual aid has literally saved lives. In addition to providing basic necessities such as warmth, food, tents, and hygiene for our marginalized communities. Next slide, please, is a blue and white image of our budget proposals. Next slide, please, is why should the 43rd participate in mutual aid? To show we stand in solidarity with BIPOC, LGBTQA+, and other impacted community members too often left behind or left waiting by local Democratic parties. Mutual aid provides tangible deliverables to impacted community members while we simultaneously work to elect endorsed candidates and use our voice on state and city policy. Mutual aid advances our 43rd District Democratic values of shared prosperity and community. Mutual aid is a practice of politics that emphasizes solidarity rather than charity. Mutual aid groups have been important political organizations, identifying inequalities that left their communities without adequate support in the first place. Other Democratic Legislative District Party organizations are also now in the process of allocating direct funds, including the 3rd, 44th, and 22nd among them. This budget item proposes that the 43rd District Democrats, next slide, I forgot to ask for that, sorry, that the 43rd Democrats allocate $4,000 from the 43rd's 2021 annual budget to mutual aid efforts in the 43rd District, including direct contributions to mutual aid groups and mutual aid support provided by the 43rd District Democrats. The 43rd District Democrats will create a mutual aid subcommittee housed under our Policy and Advocacy Committee that would prioritize Black, Indigenous, people of color, and queer-led mutual aid groups working in the 43rd District. Next slide, please, is an example of a deliverable. It's a Google Sheet form full of sleeping bags and the cost for each item that are provided: propane, tents, wool socks, batteries, lanterns, sanitizer. Mutual aid organizations are transparent and the needs are often allocated and shown transparently in their social media websites and other streams. We have a mutual aid FAQ in the mutual aid Slack channel and resolution and support that is available. In closing of that resolution, therefore be it resolved that the 43rd District Democrats allocate $4,000 from the 43rd's 2021 annual budget to mutual aid efforts in the 43rd District, including district direct contributions to mutual aid groups and mutual aid support provided by the 43rd District Democrats. And be it further resolved that the 43rd District Democrats create a mutual aid subcommittee housed under our Policy and Advocacy Committee that would prioritize Black, Indigenous, people of color, and queer-led mutual aid groups working in the 43rd District. Next slide, please. Thank you.
Great. Is that all of the slides we have?
That is all the slides we have.
Okay, great. Thank you, Don and Maddie. Would love to take this opportunity for folks to ask questions, whether that's about what mutual aid is, what the 43rd's involvement might look like. Let's hear it. So I'll just say a few times when we've been discussing resolutions, we've gone into discussions and then there are a bunch of questions. I'd really love to have questions up front this time. So I see a few, so we'll start with Andrea.
Thanks. Could you just remind us, $4,000 of the budget, what is the total budget?
Total budget of the mutual aid provided would be $4,000.
43rd District.
Yeah, that's like we allocated, I think, what was it, 40,000?
Yes.
Around 40,000 for 2021.
So this would be 10% of our budget.
Correct.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, Arvia.
Hi, yes, I was just wondering, you had said mutual aid groups. Is there a list or a website that lists all the different groups? How can we find out exactly which organizations there are, or is mutual aid one organization? I didn't quite understand that.
Thank you for that question, Arvia. In our mutual aid FAQ, there are a list of many mutual aid organizations that are willing to work with and cooperate with the 43rd. There are other mutual aid organizations that do not want to accept funds directly from a political organization, but there are many different mutual aid organizations in this city and other cities. They work usually collectively together. They are not a one solid, one confined mutual aid, and they are generally not 501c3 charities, and they work in unrestricted funding and transparent deliverables that are accessible for people to see.
So would that be on a website? If I just Googled mutual aid group Seattle, I'd see the whole list?
It'll be, we included, or Don included a list on the, I think it was shared in the chat. It's not the mutual aid. Oh yeah, Morgan just reshared it. Mutual aid FAQ links to the organization.
I see that.
Okay, great. Does that answer your question, Arvia?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, great.
Thank you. Yeah. Are there any other questions?
Oh, sorry, I muted myself accidentally. John, go ahead.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, what I understood from the resolution is that the allocation of funds is going to be delegated to this mutual aid committee. Is that correct?
This allocation of funds, we would discuss and we would listen to other community members in our subcommittee to discuss how to properly disperse of this funds, to see if there are more than one mutual aid organizations that they would like to distribute these funds to. And we would be willing to listen to other input from other 43rd members if they have found a mutual aid that has really done a lot of direct support for the 43rd residents.
And as with our other committees, should this pass, folks in the 43rd are more than welcome to join, and that would be an open process as well.
And also, I would like to invite any 43rds that have not participated in mutual aid to certainly access any mutual aid organization. I provide many organizational tools on the forum and in the Slack channel and on the FAQ. If you are willing, we would really love it and welcome any volunteer service so you could, inform yourself further on the services and deliverables provided to the community.
Great. Thanks, John. Okay, up next we have Will.
Yes. So my basic question is, given that historically we have not provided funds to our local tribe, but many of these funds are things that the city itself has looked at providing, it seems to me that if we were to give $4,000 to anyone, we should be giving it to our local tribe and not necessarily to a mutual aid fund that will help people who have moved into the area and are settlers. I'm sorry, that's just my opinion. Is there a reason why that isn't true?
Thank you, Will, for that question. We have allocated funds of the 43rd to Real Rent Duwamish, which is a 501c3, which does act in unrestricted fundings like a mutual aid for the Duwamish tribe. The mutual aid here also serves our indigenous folks. I have personally delivered with the CID mutual aid in Song to Sea to indigenous people of color and Black communities in the CID and in other areas of the, say, East Lake in the University District and even Capitol Hill. And you will find a lot of indigenous tribal members there, as well as Black community members and Asian community members and Latinx community members, and even those in the LGBTQ+ community. And I feel like it would be an empathetic service to those affected marginalized members as well.
Yeah, thanks so much, Dawn, for that. All right, up next we have Annabelle.
You mentioned that generally these mutual aid organizations are not necessarily organized as 501c3 organizations. Have we looked into the tax status implications of providing funds to mutual aid organizations? Is there a risk of jeopardizing the 43rd's tax exempt status? Is that something that we would just need to look at on an individual basis?
I would recommend that might be something for our subcommittee to research on an individual basis for mutual aid. Unless Maddie has any other information. It is my basis or my understanding that since everything is transparent and is voluntary on a volunteer system, that it does not affect any fine standings of this political organization.
Yeah, where things can get weirdly complicated. None of whether we're talking state or federal level, it's like the regulations in this area are just stupidly complex, to be frank. But one of the things that can potentially come up is, there's a notion of, for example, if you're a 527, I don't think we are a 527. That's probably the first thing for us to do is confirm our status, but for a 527, any spending they do on things that aren't considered exempt functions, the money they collected that they put towards that then becomes taxable. It's no longer exempt from taxation, and so I don't know whether providing funds to a mutual aid organization would qualify as an exempt function for a 527. So that could be, it's weird scenarios like that where even though, yeah, it's totally transparent and, it's just going to help people. The fact that that it's not going towards a political purpose is going to just help people survive. That itself potentially becomes an issue. So let's just make sure that we investigate that.
Yeah, that's a good flag, Annabelle. And I'll just jump in here to say that myself as chair and then Brad Bell as treasurer are the ones that actually disperse funds to whatever we're doing. And so we'll take that upon ourselves to look into that. So thanks for bringing that up. Okay, Al.
Yeah, I guess Annabelle somewhat asked my question, which was, my question is just why are the mutual aid associations not 401(c)(3)s, why they aren't charitable organizations? And in what sense are we mutually aiding, peers in this activity? How is it a mutual aid thing and not a charity thing?
Mutual aid does not operate on the bureaucratic necessities of grant writing and committees approving and disapproving allocations of funds, which is a timely process. Speaking as somebody that has grant writing experience and is on a board, but also as somebody that has done direct action and organized many supplies, many of us have taken to mutual aid and individually crowdsourced in transparency because of frustrations. Again, like to reiterate, my experience is crowdsourcing 39 hand washing stations for the city of Seattle in a time when COVID was rapidly infecting everyone during ground zero, and my frustrations that the city was not providing hygienic purposes and services, but actually shutting down the public restrooms of the community services, and many are still closed, public restrooms. It was a necessity, making sure and ensuring that our communities survive, not just thrive, but survive, is a political action. And it's a direct action. And many of us in mutual aid organizing found other resolutions when we were waiting for the infrastructures and the long bureaucratic tape to get funding to organizations. Like I said, I had 39 hand washing stations, and the city still has yet to provide hand washing stations in a mass amount of number to equal that for the city. Are there any other questions, Al, regarding why we would go to mutual aid as opposed to 501(c)(3)s?
Well, yeah, it's sort of a different thing whether you write grants to get money or whether when people give you money, it's tax deductible. Those are two different things. So to be in a 501(c) means if any money given to you can be written off on federal taxes, whereas grant writing is a whole different thing. That's asking federal government and so or some other granting agency to give you money. Those are kind of different things, and I am still confused how this is mutual aid. Like, why is the 43rd, what is the mutuality between the 43rd Democrats and the people of our community? What makes this different than charity?
It bypasses committees, it bypasses a board of directors, it bypasses grant writing, and it bypasses bureaucracy. Also, we are happy to discuss with you, Al, further in other more detailed private conversations, or not private conversations, but allocated time conversations, the movement camps and what is the difference between mutual aid, but also within our mutual aid FAQ, we have also provided information on what is the difference between mutual aid and charity, and all of the documentation and research done by our own Seattle University and the University of Washington in their directions and future support of mutual aid.
Great. Yeah, thanks, Don, and thanks for that offer. I do recommend people check out the FAQ. There are a lot of information there. All right, I'm seeing 3 more hands up. I know we're going over time here, so want to get through things. So we will get through these last 3 questions, I think, and then keep moving forward. So Paul.
Hi, yeah. I don't know if it's okay for me to just speak in favor of this right now, or is
It
this only
is-
questions?
This is only questions, yes. So it is not okay for you to speak in favor. We'll get to that very briefly.
Okay, I will shut up then.
Okay, sounds good. We'll hear from you soon. All right, Tara.
Yeah, the resolution references some other LDs. Do we have any information on what those LDs are doing? Like what sort of donations they're doing, amounts, what their process is like?
So the 22nd is looking to provide allocation to Indigenous tribes. I do know that the 44th has provided allocation of mutual aid to COVID-19, Seattle COVID-19, and also to the Black Lives Matter Seattle King County Charter. And the 3rd is also likewise, and the 35th are looking into providing mutual aid for houseless camps, encampments, and other marginalized communities. Tangible needs. And also, I would like to add that I recently attended the API caucus, and amongst the Asian American, Pacific Islander, Native Hawaiian communities, and representatives from each LD, the mutual consensus among all of us AA and HPI members was that mutual aid and direct assistance was the future and the necessary action.
Yeah, thanks, Don. Tara, did that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, and then Nguyen, it looks like we'll have the last question here.
I was gonna do as Paul did. So I was like, I didn't want to be like, okay, so I'm gonna wait and I'm gonna like speak my piece later.
Yep. Okay. Sounds good. So thanks, Nguyen. I appreciate that.
Scott, could I just say real quick too? I know that Al had asked a little bit about like the, what is mutual about it. And so just to address that really quickly, the 43rd District Democrats benefits, the mutuality is that we're living in a community in which people actually have resources and the direct needs met where they can actively participate in a democratic process. And that we can learn from other, organizations or groups that are organizing, that standing in solidarity with people, who've been marginalized by our current political process and our systematic, institutions. We do benefit from bringing everyone along in order to be able to have them actually be able to participate in a process, because us asking them to be PCOs or come help us endorse candidates is not us giving to them, it's them giving to us, their time and energy. And so I would say that would be the if we're talking about like, what does the mutual part mean? It doesn't always mean something as tangible as like door knockers, but it does mean something in terms of what community we're representing.
Thank you, Maddie. That is very important. Mutual aid also is a trust building relationship and allowing our communities to have a sense of trust with us. Thank you very much, Maddie.
Great. Yeah. Thank you, Beth. You're muted now, Maddie.
Sorry, yeah. And then just wanted to say real quick as well that, this is a process, right? And so, we fully expect there to be questions and things to work out. Annabelle brought up, a great flag and, things like taxes, right? And what that means. And so not only do we hope that you all, should this pass, would engage with us on it and just working the kinks out, but also, actively participating in the work, because should it pass, the work, is not just what happens tonight, it's what happens over the next year.
Great.
Thank you again.
All right. Thank you both, Don and Maddie, for that presentation and answering questions from folks. So going by our standing rules of debate, are there any motions that folks want to make other than just moving to a discussion on this? I'm not anticipating any necessarily. I just want to make sure to call it out. Okay. Annabelle.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I should know this under the debate rules. I pretty much helped write, but is now the right time for an amendment?
Now would be the right time for an amendment, yes.
Okay. Then I move to amend the resolution by appending a further be it further resolved, reading that the mutual aid subcommittee shall propose rules governing the processes by which the subcommittee will select and disperse funds to mutual aid groups, and that no funds may be dispersed prior to adoption of these rules by the membership.
Okay. Could you put that in the chat for
Give me a second or two to finish writing it.
Sure.
And yes.
Okay.
Would it be appropriate for me to provide an explanation?
Is there a second to this motion? I'm gonna ask. I think it's someone. Is that a second? I see a lot of hands there, so I'm going to count that as a second. Okay. If you want to, could you share do you have it written up now, Annabelle?
One moment. All right, I think that is it.
I will ask anyone else who's planning to make a motion if you could write it out in terms of how you want it to be discussed, or how you want it to be recorded, because we need our secretary Ellen to have it. Yes, I see yours as well. We're going to do these one at a time. All right. Do you have it written, Annabelle?
Yeah.
Oh, geez, I sent it to Morgan because I can't send it to everybody.
Okay. If you could send to everybody, Morgan, that would be great.
Mistake.
Copy paste. There it is.
Yay.
Okay. So this is just adding an additional, therefore be it further resolved.
Yes.
Right? Okay.
Yes. No changes to the rest of it.
All right, so I'll read it out loud for everybody who's listening. The Mutual Aid Subcommittee shall propose rules governing the processes by which the subcommittee will select and disperse funds to mutual aid groups, and that no funds may be dispersed prior to adoption of such rules by the membership. Okay, so I think that's pretty self-explanatory to folks. I'm not anticipating questions. So Annabelle, if you want to take a minute to speak in favor, go for it.
Yeah, I love the idea of participating in mutual aid and helping, providing direct aid to people in our community and groups in our community, and really being a part of that community. What I don't like is handing several $1,000s to a subcommittee and saying, go do something with this. I think we need, as an organization, we owe it to our membership and we owe it to ourselves in terms of preserving the tax status and such of the organization to make sure we have proper rules in place for how that money gets spent. I don't think those rules need to be deeply complex. I don't think we need to add a bunch of bureaucracy here. But I think we need some guardrails in place.
Okay, thank you, Annabelle. Is there someone who would like to speak against? And sorry, I know folks may have their hands up for other reasons, so send me a message. Ellen, I saw your hand go up. Was that a request to speak against?
Yes, it was.
Okay, go for it.
I think Ellen got muted again.
Oh,
Yeah.
that was probably my bad.
Yeah, that was my bad. Sorry. Thank you. I would like to speak against it because I feel like this amendment unnecessarily handicaps the subcommittee. I feel like we did not need to have a lot of, we didn't need to have rules approved in order to disperse real rent to the Duwamish. And I feel that this is a very similar situation where I would like the subcommittee to go ahead and disperse funds as they see fit. And the membership, which is interested in participating in the subcommittee, can certainly have that that opportunity. I trust the subcommittee to move forward wisely and prudently. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Alan. So the way our debate rounds work is we go 3 in favor and 3 against, unless there's no one willing to speak further. So is there someone else willing to, or who would like to speak in favor of Annabelle's amendment? And I will say, a couple of folks have messaged me that they want to speak about other things. If you could lower your hands until we open the floor again, that would help me determine things here. So Will, were you looking to speak on this resolution or on this amendment?
I believe it directly applies. I think the problem is that we're trying to get a group to make decisions about mutual aid, when I believe that we would be better off using external groups such as the Duwamish tribe, which we should be giving more money to, and they could determine where the mutual aid goes in consultation with a committee that we have, but in consultation, not determining how they would do it.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's for or against.
So yeah, I know you have another motion. I think that was, I'm going to put it in the other category, to be honest, for right now. So if you have another motion, we will get to that. Paul, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, I'm in favor of the whole thing. And this amendment in particular from Annabelle, I think, thinking about this as a long-term policy of the 43rd, having in place structural systems that ensure that as the subcommittee membership changes over time, we still have clear rules in place for governing how these funds are dispersed, I think is a good thing in the long term. And I would hope that the subcommittee can, come up with reasonable rules within a month or so or 2, and we can vote on them or whatever, and just have at it. And then they can go to town within the confines of that. And so I think this is, not an unreasonable way of providing those guardrails over time.
Great, thank you, Paul. All right, is there someone who would like to, I'm lowering other hands. Is there another speaker against? Right, I see Nguyen.
Yeah, so I want to ask a question. Have any of you guys have had to call 211? Or have had to try to get any type of assistance because you could not afford your rent, or because you could not get groceries, or you could not do anything that you really normally did because of your privilege? Can you raise your hands? Do you know the process of 211? If you don't know the process, like, it's a joke. You call in, you literally get a person to tell you, these are the companies that you have to talk to. And after you do that, you call 15 people to tell you you have to be evicted for you to get some type of funds for your rent or whatever you need. So for people who literally don't understand that end of the token of having to go through red tape to get funds and help, it kind of behooved me that you're like, oh, okay, well, like, we want to make sure that the people who are on this committee, sorry for not having enough time, but on this committee that have gone through the process, who work with people who have been through the process, and then you're saying that, okay, well, we need to have more information and you need to have red tape around it. Because again, we're in the trenches with these people and some of us have gone through these things. So when you say, okay, I want to put more red tape on these things, and you have not gone through the process of having to have not have food or not have a place to go or not have a sense to like know what to do because you don't have family or you don't have anyone to help you out. And yes, you could say, well, I'm not in tune with my family or I'm by myself, but you have money in the bank or you are privileged enough that you can actually borrow money.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna stop there, but it just to me, I feel as though that's why most people of color or BIPOC people are not in these spaces, because they feel like they would not be understood, nor do they feel as though they will be heard or they'll be attacked for the things that they know, because most of the people in this room have not gone through the systemic racism or the systemic problems that are in the systems. Because you get to be in these meetings and to vote and have a voice, but most of all these other people don't have a voice. They don't have what you have. So I know I'm out of time, but I just want you guys to think about that the people who are actually in the space on the subcommittee, they either have gone through it or they either know someone or they're helping someone out at this moment. So it's not that they're like just trying to throw money at an organization. They're actually going to organizations that actually they know that help. There are several organizations, because I talked to the interim mayor that came in before Durkin or something like that. I forgot his name, but he talked about the council members know that there are organizations on the actual that the council members are backing up, and they've been in the system for so long that they have been messing up the things that are happening for people who don't have money. And they're just on the rosters because they know someone on the council member or they're attached to somebody. I know you gotta go, but like it's organizations like that holds up the process of perpetuating these systems of people staying oppressed. And so I'm gonna stop there and I'm gonna allow you guys to think about what I just said, but it's hard. And if you need any more information, myself, Don, or Maddie, or anyone else on the committee are willing to actually talk to you. And yes, there are 2 Black people here, but actually, like we are people of color, well, Black people, but at the same time, and we're different. I'm not trying to bring you in this Ephraim because you on your other side, but it's like we're here, but we're here to like raise voices of concerns that are people that look like us, and but in different ways. But I want to stop there. Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Nguyen. I appreciate that. Okay, yeah, picking up. So is there another, I see folks in order here. So I'm gonna ask for, we have 1 speaker in favor left and 1 other against. Annabelle, I see your hand is up.
Offhand, at the moment, I'm not sure if I am permitted to speak in favor again.
Yeah,
I think I am not.
Yeah, we're gonna go to someone else, if possible, but thanks. Right, Paul has already spoken on this, I believe. And I guess I will say, if folks have points of order to make, please raise your hand and please DM me as well, because that's a challenge of what we're doing here. Okay, so we're looking for someone else in favor, I believe. Tara, going to you next.
Yeah, I'll speak in favor. We have, with the proposal is $4,000, which is a huge percentage of our budget, but is a teeny drop in the bucket of what is needed. There are so many organizations, there are so many possible ways we could go with it. There are just many different types of people in various kinds of need. We really need some structure before we decide what to do with the money, because it's so easy to just say like, first 2 things that show up, great, here we go. So I have no problem with actually setting up some sort of rules and structure just to really be able to focus and channel this money, because like I said, there's so much need, and ultimately it isn't a huge amount in addressing that.
Okay, thank you, Tara. All right, so then one other person can speak against this particular amendment. All right, if there's no one else, we'll just move to a vote. Looking for a hand to speak against. Okay, I'm not seeing any others, so we will go to a vote on this amendment. Oh, Andrea, are you speaking against this amendment?
Sorry, you just added amendment. No, I
Sorry,
want the
okay.
whole motion.
Okay.
Okay, we're voting
Yep.
just on the amendment.
This
Thank
is
you.
just on the amendment. Yep, sorry about that. Bethany, are you speaking against?
Yes, I will.
Go for it.
So, sorry, while I grab up my my notes. So I have to say, I know the people who put this resolution together, put a lot of thought into it, and that one of the points of mutual aid is not having to go through a level of, does your organization or your situation meet these very, very specific criteria to be worthy of help? That I think it is worth trusting the committees who are people who have worked in this mutual aid system. And if we wanted to put in some guide rails of, you have to be involved in the mutual aid community to be on that committee, or that the committee needs to listen to people from mutual aid, that's fine. But like us saying that we need to be the ones to okay that, as opposed to the people who have been putting in the time and expertise, feels a little disrespectful to them.
Thank you, Andrea.
Yeah, thank you, everybody, for speaking on that. So hearing 3 speakers, I am going to ask that we go to a vote and that we don't have a motion to continue debate on this amendment. I think folks have articulated themselves on both sides pretty well. With that, do we have a form up for this?
Working on it. Give me one moment.
Okay, thank you. I really appreciate folks being patient with our process. Getting through these Zoom meetings, I know can be a challenge.
Look, I spoke at the goddamn meeting.
All right, I'm going to remind folks to mute themselves afterwards.
May I address a question that Will had said while Annabelle is working on something?
I think we're not going to allow that right now. Sorry. So let's take a vote on this. I don't want to continue. But there will be, after we vote on this, we'll likely go to a vote on the resolution itself, and there'll be more time for discussion there. This is a good call out that if folks don't have their voting code ready, please message Bryce Colton. He's they're at the top of your participants list, and Bryce can help you get there.
I just pasted a link into chat.
You sent that directly to me.
I did, because I can't send to everybody.
Oh,
I did
great.
make
Oh,
you a
I can
survey.
send to everybody now. Okay, cool. I have more permissions. Thank you.
I sent it out.
All right, thank you.
Okay, great. So if everybody could go vote, that would be great. Gonna try and keep this open for just a couple minutes. So we'll just take a pause for 2 minutes and see if votes are still coming in. Please message Bryce or Morgan. I think if you're having issues voting, and we can help get it figured out. And I'll just say we do have a request for help in the Tally Slack channel. So our board members who are helping with that, if you could help out there, that would be great.
I see that. Thank you. I am on it.
All right, we'll be able to get that person voting code.
I just sent an email to them with their voting code. So that they should be all set if they receive that.
Okay. We will give another minute here. Have responses stopped coming in at this point, or?
I have not yet had a chance to look.
Okay. If you could check on that.
I am,
great.
yeah, give me a moment.
Dropped a couple of people in your Slack channel who are looking for their voting codes as well.
All right, I am going to need somebody else to
Bryce,
do
could you
that,
help us with that?
please.
Just a heads up for the tally committee. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm responding.
Thanks. Yep, and thanks again to everybody for your patience. Whenever we do the first vote of the night, it takes a little bit longer. But the next ones will go smoother. All right. It's been 5 minutes now. So I think we likely need to close the voting. Annabelle, do you
yeah, we
have
haven't
results
seen
available?
a new vote in a couple of minutes. Give me a moment to check the population.
At this point, I believe I have responded to everyone who needs a request. So if you still need something, please direct message me again. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Bryce. Appreciate your help.
Jesus. Okay. Wow. 15 yes, 14 no.
Okay, so the amendment is adopted then. All right, thank you.
Scott, is there any chance I can say something just closing out on that
yeah,
whole
go for it.
thing real quick? Okay, because I think I'm glad that we had that discussion and got to hear the really valid and really legitimate concerns. And I want to make sure that we understand that rules and guardrails does not necessarily mean bureaucracy and process. It doesn't necessarily mean the membership is deciding everything. It means we have some really basic, simple things to ensure that what people were asking for, what people are talking about, that it's people who've been there, people who know what it's like to need this help are involved in making the decision. Without any rules or guidelines around how that subcommittee works, there's no guarantee that happens. That might be the case today, and that's awesome, but that's not necessarily the case tomorrow unless there's process in place or rules in place to make sure that's the case. And that's what prompts my concern here. Today we may be good. Tomorrow we could have a policy and advocacy chair who decides they're just gonna put themselves in the subcommittee and do what they want with the money.
Okay.
That's what I don't want to have happen.
Yeah, thanks, Annabelle. Okay, so the floor is now open again. If there are other amendments, I do think it'd be great to move to discussion on the resolution. Nguyen, I see your hand is up.
I'm sorry, like you told me, well, I was gonna add a comment to that, but like, I guess I can't comment to what Annabelle just said. So I guess I'll just wait.
Yeah, let's have further conversation offline around this. I think would be good.
It wasn't nothing bad. It was like how it was like it seemed like, and I'm not trying to get triggered because I'm already going through stuff, but it seemed like when people of color come into spaces and we literally have expertise and stuff, it's like the rules get pushed further out, and like there's a lot of red tape around stuff, but like anyone else can like create something and say, oh, okay, well, let's do this here, and their credibility is not questioned as much, because we had that's just the same. I'm done. So yeah.
Okay. Thanks for sharing that, Annabelle or Nguyen. I appreciate that. So, and I think we have more to discuss in the future. Okay, I'm seeing a lot of hands up right now. So I'm gonna go through the list. We are at this point, the options are, I mean, folks can move to amend. We can, if there are no motions to amend, we're gonna move to discussion on the resolution, but wanna hear what other folks have to say here. John.
Hi, yeah, I have an amendment to propose that I think would obviate the amendment that was just adopted.
What do you mean by obviate?
Well, yeah, I mean, instead of having rules about what organizations can be supported, the budget would be allocated to direct mutual aid, where it's up to the committee to organize volunteers to distribute goods and allocate services.
Could you give do you have text for that amendment? Because to my ears, it sounds somewhat redundant with the resolution itself as it is.
No, it's quite different, because there wouldn't be a budget to allocate to other groups. There would be a budget to allocate to support our own volunteers.
Okay, so I'm gonna rule that out of order right now. I see that
I don't roll it out of order, Scott.
Okay, so my reading of this resolution is that it allocates $4,000. I'm just reading from the text. Allocates $4,000 from the 43rd 2021 annual budget to mutual aid efforts in the 43rd district, including direct contributions to mutual aid groups and mutual aid provided by the 43rd district Democrats. The committee that is formed can make that determination. So I guess my question is, if you're
Yeah, I mean, I just want to take out the part about distributing money to mutual aid groups.
Okay. All right. So what is the text of your amendment? I don't want to.
You sent it to, who did I send it to?
I do not have it.
Somebody that I could send it to.
I think you sent it to me. Let me scroll back in my chat.
Again, you want me to send it to you?
Yep, sending this now. Let me know if that's what you were thinking.
Okay. So I'm gonna ask that amendment. It's also going to need to include removing the direct contributions to mutual aid groups striker. So we can get it there. So I'm going to ask, is there a second to this amendment? Sorry to everybody who has to lower their hands. Andrea, I saw your hand up earlier. I don't know if this is a second. Looking for a second to this amendment. Okay, seeing no second, the amendment does not come up for discussion. Okay, sorry, if folks could raise their hands again. I lost the order there, my apologies. I know I saw Dawn and Andrea. Charlotte.
Are we offering amendments still?
If you feel an amendment will be useful, you can offer it.
I was not going to offer an amendment. I was going to speak on the resolution as a whole.
Okay, yep. So I'm looking for another, if there are any other amendments, now's your chance. Otherwise, I'm going to discuss it. Okay, not seeing any. That's great. Okay, so with that, we'll move to discussion. So what I'm going to ask for is if everybody could raise their hand who would like to speak. I will take note of those folks and we will go through the list. So I'm just going to unmute folks. Charlotte, you want to speak on which side?
Yeah, so I'm going to speak against the resolution as amended. Okay,
hold on. I'm taking names first, and then we'll get through people.
Okay.
So thanks. Okay, Paul.
I'd like to speak for the resolution.
Okay. Mariah.
Yes, I'd like to speak for the resolution and say that I believe that.
Mariah, we'll come to you in just a second. I'm just taking names of folks real quick.
Okay.
Andrea, you have let me know that you want to speak against. Is that still correct? Okay, great. And then we have room for one more speaker in favor and against. Don, I saw your hand up.
I would just like to say that the amendments to the resolution, I understand that there are safety nets and that there are further studies, but I do feel like it adds bureaucracy and further opposition and oppression to the marginalized communities as a person of color. It instills institutional supremacy on a direct, equitable policy that we could do for our committee. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that, Dawn. Sorry, looking for another against. So we have Tara. Are you looking to speak against?
I'll speak against.
All right. Okay, so we're going to start with the yeses. So Paul, you are up first here. And actually, really quickly, Nico, were you looking to speak in favor or against?
In favor.
Okay. Great. So we have 4 is interested in speaking in favor and 3 against. So just so everybody knows, if folks want to discuss offline or let me know, think about who the 3 are going to be to speak in favor. That'd be great. Okay, sorry. So Paul, you are up first.
I'm happy. So if we only want 3 and 3, I'm happy to yield to someone else since I've already talked.
Okay, sure. Nico, do you want to go?
I'm in total favor of this.
Okay.
We get that.
Yeah, heard that. All right, Nico, do you want to go for it? Oh, I've lost Nico. Mariah, you also.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Cool. Yeah, absolutely. I'll speak in favor of this. I think that mutual aid is a necessity. I think it's something that we as an organization have an obligation to do. I absolutely agree with many of the sentiments echoed by earlier proponents, even if those positions have since changed. I did want to, and I rose my hand earlier to remind folks that let's not speak for entire populations of people. I think even within our own body, we can see diversity of opinion amongst BIPOC folks, amongst other folks, right? And so I, stand and rise as someone who does see the value for an organization to set groundwork for the work that they want to do. It is one thing to say you are about doing work. It is another to put that shit on paper, pardon my French, and to then uphold it. And I think that the amendment that we have passed now requires us to do that, requires us to put on paper what has been expressed here and then uphold that to make sure that the money that we're giving out actually goes to helping the people in the community that need help. And so, yeah, I could say more, but I know my time's up, so I'll leave it there.
Sure. Yeah, thank you, Nico. Appreciate that. Okay, up next I have Charlotte speaking against the resolution.
Oh, I'm unmuted now. Great,
Yep.
cool. Hi. I'm just going to say on my part, I don't think that we should let ourselves get hung up on whataboutisms. I agree with the resolution before it was amended. I'm going to be voting in favor of the resolution. I just don't think that we should be getting ourselves hung up on what if this happens in the future, rather than focusing on what the needs of the community are right now.
Okay. Thanks. All right, speaker in favor of the resolution, Mariah.
Okay, I want to speak in favor of the resolution. I believe that when the pandemic first hit, the mutual aid came in very quickly, and I felt that it took a lot of teamwork for that to happen and for people to get food and money for supplies at a very fast pace. So I am voting for this because I agree with the lady that's here today.
Great, thank you, Mariah. Okay, speaking against is Andrea. Oops, sorry, I think I just muted you, Andrea. Sorry about that.
Thanks. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I hate to say this because I love the idea of mutual aid and everything that's been proposed, but while the intent is laudable, I wouldn't support the Democratic Party funds going to this purpose. As a contributor, I expect my donations to go towards winning elections, period. That means recruiting and grooming candidates, organizing, marketing, and getting out the vote efforts. If I want to support the good works of the community groups and NGOs, I'll donate to them directly or work with them directly. Democrats might even run the risk of backlash from members or donors who may not want to support the work or missions of the recipients that we choose. So what I'm hoping is maybe I misunderstood the whole thing, but it just seems to me this is not the mission of the Democratic Party. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Andrea. Okay, and then speaking in favor, Dawn or Amy have both messaged me or wanted to speak. Don't see hands right now. Amy, do you want to go? Good to have different folks. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, the request to unmute took a while to get to me. I just got it. So were there a number of speakers ahead of me, Scott? Because I'm happy to step back if somebody else wanted to speak.
Paul has already deferred because he spoke already, and then Dawn was just sharing a brief comment.
Okay. I guess I'll go for it. So when I was 19 years old, I was living in the city on my own, fresh out of foster care, lucky to find cheap rent, as I served as an AmeriCorps member running a shelter system for unsheltered youth. I had no emergency savings, no family support, etc., and had to scrape together my pennies to pay for basic needs. I had to jump through tons of hoops once to get $100 to help pay my rent. And there were times when my housing was in trouble, and I knew other former foster kids in the community who were not able to find or keep housing. I remember starting to get involved with the 43rd Dems around that time, and have a clear memory of there being an ask for around $20 to become a member, which was money I didn't have, and having the sense of people in the organization being really nice people, but people who were a lot more wealthy and resourced than I was. And I couldn't shake the sense that I didn't belong. And I had that same sense when I tried to get involved when Obama inspired me to jump in as a delegate in 2008. So I believe it's because of efforts like this that more people like me feel like we can not only belong in this community, but we can lead. And we need to be moving this direction toward mutual aid being a part of trust building and putting our money and resources where we say our values lie.
Great. Thank you, Amy. All right, and then up next we have Tara to speak against.
Hi, I really hate being in a position of sounding like I'm speaking against mutual aid. I certainly am not, but I think it's not the best use of the 43rd's resources. Like I said before, it's a big hunk of our budget, but it is a teeny drop in the face of all the need in the community. And yes, it will help some individuals, but we are uniquely positioned to do a lot more for the greater good with electing good legislators and pressing them to pass good legislation that will help everybody and do much more work that way. We should be focusing our resources, monetary and time and effort, into that which is our unique mission, where we are uniquely and specially positioned to do the greatest good and maximize our resources towards general systemic change and not just a little drop in the need bucket.
Okay, thank you, Tara. All right, so we have had 3 speakers for and 3 against. So we can have another 3 for and 3 against. It's pretty late. I think most folks have said their piece here. So Paul, your hand is up.
Yeah, if it's okay, I'm happy to speak for now.
Yeah, we don't need any more speakers for or against right now. I guess the question I'm asking to folks is, if you want to have a vote, we can vote to go another 3 rounds of debate on each side. So I leave that all up to you. I'm seeing a few folks saying they would like to move to a vote. So, all right, so we will do that. And yeah, really appreciate everybody speaking tonight. Do we have a form to get to folks?
I am sending it to everyone, actually everyone for real this time, in chat.
Yep, it's in chat. So again, we'll give this, let's say 3 minutes. So 9:53. I think folks have the voting figured out. So this can go. Again, message Bryce or Annabelle or Morgan if you're having issues. Okay, and a couple of people have pointed out to me a great idea, which is that we can get started on good order now while we're waiting for the results to come back. So please do keep voting and let us know if you have any struggles there. But I'll also say if folks have good order, please raise your hand and we can get to you. Maddie has let me know that she has something to share. So Maddie, do you want to start us off?
Sure, thanks, Scott. So I'll get us kicked off with good of the order. Just wanted to remind folks that, regardless whether this resolution passes or fails, that we have allocated a significant amount of money to a lot of different committees and chairs within the 43rd District Democrats, and every single one of those chairs doesn't get to spend money willy-nilly on their own. They don't have access to the finances. It has to pass through our chair. And so while we could debate about the different, sort of rules that, could still be, govern that, or the chair could use to govern that, I would just ask folks that if it does pass, to consider that, we allocated, $4,000 to $5,000 to DEI work, $1,000 to accessibility, and a variety of other issues and areas that we wanted to explore as a district, and with the same financial requirements as what we have had in place this whole time. And so just encouraging folks to think about that. And so while I appreciate the opportunity for this to be a more sustainable process and agree that it should be, that to keep in mind for the next round that people cannot spend, the chairs cannot spend money willy-nilly and do not have access to that. So wanted to put that out there.
Sure. Thanks, Maddie. And Quita, I see your hand is up.
Sorry, yes. I would like to let everybody know I'm myself and the 5 co-chairs that are on the commission with OCR. We're putting up a form for individuals before the moratorium end. So I wanted to make sure that you guys know that we're gonna have a form to help out people, to let them know what their rights are. We're gonna try to get more people involved to figure out how can we help in a sustainable way for people who don't know their rights when it comes to renters' rights. And then also, if you guys want to help and volunteer with the actual form, just please let me know in some type of way if you want to get involved, because we're trying to make sure that everyone knows about what rights that they have, and also how can we be more helpful within the communities that we serve, especially on the disabilities committee. Disabilities Commission, LGBTQ AI Commission, and also Office of the other 3 I forgot, but there's all of us coming in together to create a forum so that we can actually be helpful for everyone within our all of our constituents and I think, and also in our LDs. So just wanted to let you guys know about that, and I'll give you more information. So yeah.
Yeah, thanks so much, Nikkita. There was a question, what is OCR?
Office of Civil Rights. It's actually, it houses all of the commissions that actually go out. We literally help with the mayor's office, the council members, and then also OCR, because it's the own department, with different resolutions that comes out when it comes to our different departments. And then we also help out with different local things that happens within the actual within the spaces that we're serving in. So I guess that's how I can explain it, but I can talk to you one-on-one if you need to know more information.
Yeah, thanks for that. Really quickly, I want to say my own good of the order in terms of upcoming dates to be aware of. Our endorsements meeting is going to be June 15th at 7 p.m. It will likely go long, so please do come prepared for that. We're going to get started right at 7. Please make sure you have your voting codes and everything in advance of that. And then Morgan, could you remind us all of when our city council forum is going to be?
Yes, Thursday, June 3rd at 7 p.m. And it will be virtual. So I'll drop the link again to RSVP, but we will send out an email blast as well.
Okay, yeah, sounds good. Arshia, I see your hand is up. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you. I just had a really quick event to plug. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Arshia. I am Congressman Adam Smith's political director. Adam is having a Q&A tomorrow night for PCOs. It's aimed mostly for South King County, and I know there's very little overlap between the 9th and the 43rd LD, but anyone that's interested in coming, asking a question, or just listening, you're more than welcome to come. I will put my information in the chat box, and if anyone's interested, just shoot me an email and I'll get you the Zoom information.
Great. Thanks for that. Yeah, please send that to Morgan and she can share it out for you. Okay, oops, Charlotte. And we're just doing good of the order and then we'll go back for the results. I'm sure Annabelle likely has those.
Okay, great. I have 2 things for good of the order. The first, we have some South King County races. As you all know, it's municipal race year, 1 of 2. And South King County is desperately in need of treasurers. And luckily for us, the PDC, the Public Disclosure Commission, is doing 2 training sessions this Thursday. You can sign up. You got to sign up by, I believe, midnight tonight. But it goes over, the reporting requirements and kind of learning how to treasure an account or a campaign. The second, I wanted to plug a campaign. My friend Stephanie Gallardo is running in the 9th CD against a warmonger, Adam Smith. And she's a really great community advocate. She's a teacher with the Seattle Public Schools. And she's got a Twitter, Elect Gallardo. And I have donated to her and you should check her out. She's a really great candidate and I look forward to supporting her.
All right. Thanks for that, Charlotte. I'm putting in the chat really quickly. I just remembered there's a King County Young Democrats forum for the KC exec race that's coming up this Sunday. So someone might be interested in that. Okay, Annabelle, do we have results on the resolution? Oh. Annabelle, are you there?
Oh, yeah, I was muted.
Yeah,
Apologies. We do, let me just make sure that I'm getting the numbers properly accurate. Okay. Yes, the resolution passes 20-6. Sorry, 23-6.
Okay. All right. So thank you all. I want to say 2 things about that. The first is that I really appreciate the discussion that we had. I especially want to commend the folks who were sharing some really personal stories and personal experiences. Thank you for that. Thank you for bringing those perspectives to this discussion and the work that many of you have been doing in regards to mutual aid already. So thanks so much for that. Thanks to everybody for the discussion tonight. The other thing I was going to say is that please join the mutual aid committee. So if you're interested in joining, you can send an email to me at chair@43rddemocrats.org, and I will put you in touch with the right folks. But there were some concerns about the best way to do this. If you have those thoughts, please get involved. So this is something new, and we are kind of blazing a new path forward here. As the Democratic Party org doing this, and want folks to get involved in doing mutual aid, and build up our own capacity too. So look forward to having folks involved in that. All right, any other good of the orders? Not seeing any hands. Thank you all for sticking with us. I know this meeting went late. Next month, we'll probably go a little late too. We're going to try and get through it as well as we can. But yeah, really appreciate you all, and look forward to seeing you again soon. So we will adjourn. Thanks, everybody.